How's it going? I'm going to share a message this morning titled, The Spirit of Control, and the thrust of the message is this: you're not in control, so don't try to be. You're not in control, so don't try to be. And we're going to be basing ourselves in Exodus chapter 5. This is a story of Pharaoh, and that's going to be the launch pad that we're going to share from. And we're going to get right into it because we have very little time and too much to talk about. So Exodus chapter 5, we're going to start from verse 1. It says this: Afterward, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go, so that they may hold a festival to me in the wilderness." Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Then they said, "The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Now let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God, or he may strike us with plagues or with the sword." Next slide. But the king of Egypt said, "Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their labor? Get back to your work." Then Pharaoh said, "Look, the people of the land are now numerous, and you are stopping them from working." That same day, Pharaoh gave this order to the slave drivers and overseers in charge of the people: "You are no longer to supply the people with straw for making bricks. Let them go and gather their own straw, but require them to make the same number of bricks as before. Don't reduce the quota. They are lazy. That is why they are crying out, 'Let us go and sacrifice to our God.' Make the work harder for the people so that they can keep working and pay attention to no lies." So just a quick explanation or summary of the story. In this story, the Israelites have been in Egypt for 300 years. And over that time, they've eventually become slaves. And they're ruled over by the king of the Egyptians, Pharaoh himself. And so Moses is prompted by God to approach the Egyptians and to say to them, "Let my people go." To approach Pharaoh and say, "Let my people go." Now, it's kind of hard to get a sense of this in the text, but this would have been incredibly scandalous and offensive in that day, in that culture. The first reason is that in the ancient Egypt kingdom, Pharaoh wasn't just a political king. He was actually the embodiment of the gods in human form. And so we know that in the Egyptian texts, they describe Pharaoh as the embodiment of Ra. So Ra was one of the gods of Egypt, and they describe him as the living God and the perfect God. And so when Moses comes and says, "Let my people go," he's in effect usurping the authority of Pharaoh himself. He's saying, "You don't really have that much authority." And then he goes on and says, "Your rule is not enough. My God demands that you release his people because we're going to go worship him in the wilderness." So he takes it a step further and says, it's not just that your authority means nothing, it's that your gods mean nothing. We're going to go worship our God instead of your gods. And so and then to even make it even more offensive, Moses, he has chosen to become a nobody. He's relinquished his rights, having been adopted into the family of the Pharaoh. He has relinquished his rights and he has aligned himself with slaves. And so this is a nobody coming to this God king saying, "Let my people go." It would have been scandalous, unthinkable in that culture. And so Moses, he makes this request, and we know the response. Pharaoh refuses. And so the ball's back in Moses' court, and instead of giving up, he reiterates the request. He says, "No, let my people go." But this time he attaches it with a threat. And he says, if you don't let God's people go, there will be plagues and maybe even death. So he's giving him a warning. And so the ball is thrown, it's like this tennis match. Who's more powerful? And so the ball is thrown back into Pharaoh's court, and Pharaoh doubles down and takes control of the situation. He orders the slave drivers with their whips and their commands. He orders them not to provide the Israelite slaves with all of the key materials that they needed to produce the bricks. And so instead, they had to go and get their own straw, and all without kind of reducing the daily production quota. Essentially, they had to work harder for the same amount of bricks without the materials that they needed. They had to go collect it themselves. And so just as Pharaoh is beginning to feel control kind of slip through his fingers, he tightens the screws. He tightens the screws and he demands the same output, removing their basic needs and forcing the people into worse hardship. Now, this is a perfect example of the spirit of control. It's a perfect example. In fact, the whole story of Exodus, the spirit of control, this theme of control is found throughout. We see it from the very first chapter. It's a window into the rest of the book, where the Pharaoh at that time commands all the newborn babies, the newborn men, to be newborn boys to be murdered, to be killed, assassinated. And so the spirit of control begins in chapter 1, and we see it all the way through to when Pharaoh is chasing Israel to the Red Sea. It's the spirit of control at play throughout. And as the narrative kind of continues, the spirit of control and manipulation spirals and intensifies. It just gets worse and worse as the story progresses. So control. Let's think a little bit about control. How would we define control? I think when we think about control, it involves authority, it involves mastery, it involves influence. And so how I would define control is that it's when you either desire to or exercise authority over people or situations. When you either desire to or exercise authority over people or situations. Now, here's what I want to get really clear about control. Control isn't necessarily sinful. It's not necessarily wrong. It's not inherently evil. Let me give you an example. We know that Pharaoh was controlling. That's very clear from the narrative. But if you rewind 300 years before him, there was a certain man named Joseph. And Joseph was the second in charge of Egypt, second to Pharaoh. He had control over the people, control over the land, and yet he wasn't controlling. He was serving the people. In fact, he saved that whole region from extinction. So just because someone is in control doesn't mean it's necessarily evil or wrong. You could say that I'm in control of this room right now because I'm speaking and you're listening. But you wouldn't necessarily say that what's taking place right now is evil, necessarily. Or if my daughter Esther is running onto the road and there's oncoming traffic, if I grab her and control her, you wouldn't necessarily say that that's wrong. So not all control is evil necessarily. What's sinful is the type of control that A, prioritizes the self at the expense of the other, or B, the type of control that prioritizes its own will above God's will. That's the evil type of control. That's the spirit of control that we're talking about. That's the spirit of control that Pharaoh had. And so that's when control becomes controlling. And that's when control is distorted into the spirit of control. Now, when it comes to control, there are the means by which people exercise their control, and there is the goal that they're aiming to achieve in exercising that control, always, in every case, without realizing it, or well, if they realize it or not. There's always a means by which they exercise their control, and there is a goal for them exercising that control. In Pharaoh's case, the means by which he exercised control was people. Pharaoh controlled people. He murdered every newborn Israelite. He enslaved an entire race of people, and then he turned up the notch when he felt threatened and made their work harder. Other people, they control people by influencing what they believe, where they can go, what they can say, what they can dress, controlling how they behave, controlling their future by limiting the options that they have to move forward. It's the controlling spirit. You're controlling people. There are all sorts of ugly strategies that people employ to control people. Manipulation, abuse, rejection. These are some of the things that people use to employ to get other people to do what they want. But the common denominator, the heart of the means by which as to why they're enslaving people, the reason why they're controlling people, the heart of it is they want to maintain their power. They want to maintain power. They want to hold on to the power that they have, and that's the case that we see with Pharaoh. Another example, some people try to control the narrative. They want to control the narrative, the different narratives that are out there. They try and unfairly represent their opponent's views just so that their narrative is the dominant one. Have you ever been in a situation where there are two narratives at play and they're just conflicting and then nothing makes sense anymore and it gets murkier and murkier and murkier, and there's typically one party or one person who is enforcing their view, is really strong in dictating what the narrative is? That might be the means by which they're exercising the control. But the goal is to maintain their image. The goal is to maintain their reputation. The goal is to feel accepted by others. Another example, people can try to control situations. And so they think to themselves, man, if I can pull this lever, if I can press that button, if I can make this chess move, if I can just get that promotion, I'll get this outcome. That's the surface level behavior, but at the heart of it, they're trying to find security. And they feel incredibly insecure. Even if the person knows it or not, there are means by which they exercise control, and there is a goal for which they are exercising their control. Now, here's the reality of control. This is just the reality of it. Number one, it's based on a lie. It's based on a lie. The person exercising the controlling spirit believes that they must manage everything or nothing will work out. And that's a lie. I know many people who maybe perhaps do nothing in a situation and things work out. Or the other lie that they believe, if I can control other people or situations, I'll be satisfied or accepted or secure or successful or powerful. And that's also just not true. It's based on a lie. Some of the least materially secure people are among the most content because their hope is not in controlling things or people. Their hope is in something else. Secondly, the second reality when it comes to the spirit of control It's an illusion. It's an illusion. You're not in control. You're not in control. You're not in control. So stop trying to be. I heard a study that a psychologist ran, and he discovered that people that think they have control over their lives, in actual fact, only have control of 18% of it. Which means that the other 82% of their lives, they're not in control of. Just think about the sheer amount of people that exist on this earth. There are 8.2 billion people on the earth right now. That's 8.2 billion people with 8.2 different perspectives on how you feel and how you think. That's 8.2 billion people that have their own volition, their own free will, who you can't control. Think about your birth. Did you have control over who your parents were? Over what your sex was? Where you were born? When you were born? How big your nose was? What color your hair was? No control over it. Think about your children if you have any. Like, are you not confronted with how out of control you are when they are going through temper tantrums or disobeying or doing a bunch of things that you don't want them to do? It's confronting in that moment. We were in Switzerland maybe like 2 months ago or 3 months ago, traveling as a family, and there was this moment. Like, the whole trip went really well, but this was probably like the hardest moment. We're in Switzerland. We're at this place called Zermatt. It's right below this beautiful mountain called the Matterhorn, and it's actually the mountain that when you go and buy a Toblerone, it's the mountain that you see on the Toblerone. So it's based off that mountain. And we're there staring at this incredible mountain. The scenery is amazing. And we realize that we've got to get to the train. Like, the train station is leaving in 10, 15 minutes. We've got to get there ASAP. And so we're about to leave, and my daughter Esther turns to me and says, "Daddy, I've got to do a number 2. Oh man, okay. So how are we going to do this? I look around, there's no bathrooms. I look around, there's nowhere for her to kind of hide, so we just chuck a nappy on her. And she feels like she's got to hide to do her business, so she finds a rock 50 meters away and runs to it, and she's standing behind this rock. I'm like, "Come on, let's go, we've got to go." So she does her business, comes back, I clean her up, we're about to leave, and then we find out that my other daughter had also done her business in her nappy. So I've got to now find a place to lay her down. There's just dirt everywhere, rocks everywhere. There's nothing to really lie them down on other than rocks, really. So I lie her down on a rock, we clean her up, we get the nappy on. It's 10 minutes. 10 minutes that we've got before the train is leaving. We traveled 3 hours to be there, so we're traveling 3 hours back. If we miss this, we're getting home at 11 p.m. It's getting really stressful. The only problem was that between us and the train station was a massive inclined hike. Now, you try hiking with 3 kids under 4 and no prams. We were just like, how on earth are we going to make this? So Priscilla, who's at the back with the baby in the carrier, had that same baby in the carrier. And I've got Bella, our middle child, in my arm, and then Esther. And we're just climbing up this mountain. And it is hard. Like, we're just pushing and pushing and pushing. Priscilla's nearly crying. I'm nearly crying. Bella's squealing. Zion is screaming. The only one who was loving it was Esther. She's just plodding along and really enjoying it. She didn't complain once. I think right at the top, she's like, "Daddy, I'm tired." That was it. But in that moment, even though we made it to the train on time, we were confronted with how out of control we are. Man, it was like a barrage that just hit us. It was like the text was coming across our eyes. You are not in control. You are not in control. You are not in control. Think about governments, presidents, kings, and the fact that they have the power to drastically change your life overnight, and you have no say in it. Wars, headlines, policies, all of that can change your life overnight. Think about your next breath. You didn't have to decide to take it. And even as I say that, you're breathing and not even realizing it. And you can hold your breath, but only for so long. Because after a while, your system kicks in, your body kicks in and forces you to breathe. Even at the level of breathing, you are not in control. Now, if you're not in control of your breath, what else are you not in control of? We scratch beneath the surface and see that life is actually unpredictable, chaotic at times. Thirdly, firstly, control is based on a lie. Secondly, control is an illusion. Thirdly, control, when weaponized, is an idol. Control is an idol. Here's Timothy Keller's definition of an idol. An idol is anything more important to you than God. Anything that absorbs your heart and imagination more than God. Anything you seek to give you what only God can give you. It's anything so central and essential to your life that should you lose it, your life would feel hardly worth living. It's whatever you look at and say in your heart of hearts, if I have that, then I'll feel like my life has meaning. Then I'll know that I have value. Then I know that I'll feel significant and secure. Control, when it's used sinfully, is an idol. It promises security, it promises meaning, it promises success, it promises satisfaction, but it cannot deliver what only God can deliver. Only God can make you long-lastingly satisfied. Only God can make you secure. Only God can tell you your identity. And so if it's true that control is an idol, and if it's true that you want to be in control, then it can be said that control is a form of self-worship. Let me say that again. If it's true that control is an idol, and if it's true that you want to be in control, then it can be said that control is a form of self-worship. Only I am reliable. Only I am trustworthy. Only I am powerful. Only I can be trusted. And when you don't have control, when it starts to slip through your fingers like Pharaoh, fear kicks in. Dread kicks in. Depression kicks in. Woe kicks in. And it becomes this never-ending cycle of pain as Satan exploits and leverages the fear that you feel at the possibility of losing your precious little idol of control. And so it's this vicious cycle. If you go to the next slide, we embrace the idol of control. You believe the lie that only you can be trusted. And you buy into the illusion that control can be attainable. And then, when you lose control, fear controls you. And you abandon your values, you abandon your morals, just to get control back, reinforcing the very cycle that you set in motion in the first place. How crazy is that? The spirit of control is based on a lie. It's an illusion. and it's an idol. So what are the consequences? If you choose to live a life of control, if you choose to embrace the spirit of control, what's the outcome? Well, the first is that it makes God look small. It makes God small. God is no longer the king of your life. God is no longer the author of your life. You don't need him to defend you from accusations. What do you do instead? You control the narrative. You don't let him deliver you. What do you do instead? You control people so you can create your own rescue instead of trusting his. You don't let him shape your identity. What do you do instead? You control your image and reputation so you can become the God of your own story. And so God might have a particular plan for your life, but because you keep controlling your life and refusing to let him control it, you miss out on what he has planned for you. And God is made out to be small. You're misrepresenting him. You're not honoring him with your life. So number one, the outcome, the consequence of control or being controlling is that we make God look small. Number two, we hurt ourselves. We hurt ourselves. When you try to play the role of God through control, it's exhausting. It's tiring. If you've ever tried to exercise control and wield control and weaponize control, you know that it's just tiring. Like you weren't built for it. It's anxiety-inducing. It breeds anxiety because you feel the pressure to cross every T and dot every I and make sure that you've exhaustively and comprehensively controlled your environment. And over time, that constant vigilance wears on you. Sleepless nights, the relentless what-ifs, performing, overthinking, forcing people to do things, manipulating people and hammering them until you get the result you want, constantly feeling like you have to polish your image. It's tiring. It's exhausting. And it hardens your heart, just like Pharaoh. You see, if you read the story of Exodus, this phrase comes up again and again and again. That Pharaoh's heart was hard. That Pharaoh's heart was hardened. That Pharaoh's heart was hardened. And so what the author is saying is that it isn't just that he was making God small by embracing the spirit of control, but also that he was hurting himself to the point where his own son was a sacrifice to the idol of control. Your desire to control everything will destroy you. The spirit of control has a self-destruct mechanism. It's just how it works. It makes the user believe that it's bringing life when actually it's destroying the user. Now there's a perfect analogy to this, amazing illustration in our pop culture from Star Wars. Who's seen Star Wars? Hands up. Who hasn't seen Star Wars? Oh my goodness. You are excommunicated. So there's one of the main characters, Anakin Skywalker. He was this innocent child. And as he grows older, he falls in love with this woman. And he's like deep in love, and he begins to fear the possibility of losing this love, the love of his life. And he tries to control people and control the circumstances around him so he doesn't lose the love of his life, but he loses grip of reality and begins to compromise his values and compromise his morals for the sake of being in control. And so you can see the progression of his life as fear led to anger, and anger led to hate, and hate led to suffering. He becomes Darth Vader. And you can visually see the regression, not the progression. I used the word progression. I meant regression. The regression of what he once was to what he became. This innocent child, this smiling teenager, this angry young man, this hateful young man, to a monster. To the point where his external appearance is simply a reflection of his internal monstrosity. Why? Because the spirit of control controlled him. When you try to play the role of God through control, you've activated the self-destruct button. That's essentially what you've done. And the path leads to you hurting yourself. So number one, consequences. Controlling leads to making God small. Number two, hurting ourselves. And then lastly, we hurt others. When you try to play the role of God through control, you end up just like Pharaoh, enslaving everyone around you. They become your slaves. You're the slave master with the whip. And they serve your purposes. You threaten them if they don't do what you say. You whip them if they do what you tell them not to do. And you manipulate them so that you can keep your puppet strings attached. That is deeply traumatic. Deeply traumatic. Now let me ask you a question. What kind of values and morals are you willing to compromise for the sake of being in control? Even if we change that sentence from what kind of values are you willing to what kind of values and morals have you compromised for the sake of being in control? People become a means to the end of your insatiable desire for control, and they no longer have value and dignity under your spell. You trample on people on the way to your ambitious and selfish desires and forego love in the process, all because you're more concerned with coddling your precious idol than you are with the well-being of others. When we embrace the spirit of control, we make God small, we hurt ourselves, and we hurt others. So what's the solution? God is calling you to let go. Dallas Willard said this: the soul finds rest when it no longer has to manage outcomes. John Mark Comer said this: the people I know who have well-rested souls are not the people who have everything go the way they want it to go. They are the people who somehow become free from the need for things to go the way that they want it to go. So how do we proceed? What's the alternative to control? Some have suggested that the alternative to the controlling spirit is embracing inaction. Embrace the philosophy of doing nothing. That somehow, in some way, the wheels and cogs of the universe will turn in our favor. That if we simply wait long enough and stop trying, everything will eventually work itself out. Now, here's the absurdity of that view. If we simply sit back and wait, hoping that the stars will align in our favor, we essentially believe that our waiting somehow influences the trajectory of time and events, when in fact, we have no guarantee anything will shift just because we're passive. One of the laws of this universe is cause and effect. Cause and effect. And if you're sitting and doing nothing, you're not causing or affecting anything. What you need is a personal being to shift things. And not just a personal being, as though anyone else on earth could control things for you. Because if that's the case, we're right back at square one. What you need is not a personal being, it's an ultimate personal being. Sitting on the sidelines and doing nothing is a fantasy disguised as hope. So what's the solution? Moses, the contrasting character to Pharaoh in the book of Exodus, says it best. Look at Exodus 14:14. Next slide. Moses says, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Look at the contrast between Pharaoh and Moses. Now, there are two crucial parts to that sentence. The Lord will fight for you. Be still. And so what this alternative philosophy does is that it throws away the Lord and says, just be still. But if you remove God from the picture and embrace being still, all you're left with is blind hope and inaction. So what does the word say? It always tells us to place our trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. He who heeds the word wisely will find good, and whoever trusts in the Lord, happy he is. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord and whose hope is the Lord. Jesus says, come to me. Don't come to the universe. Don't wait till the stars align. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. The alternative to a controlling spirit isn't a spirit of passivity. It's an active turning to and trusting in the Lord. Amen? Trusting in the Lord. It means that you're actively surrendering your need to dictate results to God. And you're letting Him guide your life. Trusting God means acknowledging, I don't have ultimate power, but I'm aligning with the one who does. Here's the kicker. All of that is true. But here's the kicker. You can entrust power and control to God not only because He's the most powerful, but because He knows what it is to be powerless. All of the gods of Egypt, I'm powerful, I'm strong. You know what our God does? He dies on a cross. He knows what it is to be powerless. In Jesus, God surrendered Himself to human hands, endured the control of others on the cross, and yet trusted the Father's plan, showing us the way to relinquish control with confidence. Next slide. The cross is God's ultimate denouncement of controlling and manipulative tactics, because it's there that we see God Himself unwilling to manipulate or coerce, and yet willing to embrace vulnerability, suffering, and the fullness of human experience to accomplish His purposes. This is the God that we serve. And that's the reason why you can trust in God. So here's the outcome. Here's the outcome of if you trust in God. Whereas controlling brings exhaustion, letting go and trusting God brings rest. Whereas controlling brings anger and fear, letting go and trusting God brings gentleness and peace. Whereas controlling brings disappointment and frustration, letting go and trusting God brings freedom and joy. Whereas controlling makes God small, trusting God represents how big He truly is. Whereas controlling causes us to hurt ourselves and hurt others, trusting God brings peace and healing to ourselves and others. Whereas controlling hardens your heart, just like Pharaoh, trusting God softens your heart. Whereas controlling causes sleepless nights, trusting God causes you to have good sleep. Whereas with control, you're always performing. Trusting God liberates you to be authentically yourself. Whereas with control, you're always whipping people and threatening people and manipulating people. Trusting God frees you to love. So where are you embracing the spirit of control? Are you trying to control your wife? Control your children? Control your destiny? Your finances, your ministry? When you trust God with your relationships, your finances, your children, your ministry, your career, your identity, your future plans, all of it, when you trust Him with all of it, you let go of the illusion that you can control them and the lie that if you don't, things won't work out. Then even if you encounter chaos after letting go and surrendering, guess what? God's going to use it for your good, because all things work for those who love the Lord. So we're going to close, but one final thing. This whole topic of conversation opens up a massive conversation regarding if you are being controlled. If you're a victim of being controlled, that's a whole different conversation. 10 different sermons that we'd love to unpack. If that's you, we'd love to talk to you. If you feel the need to just share your heart, unburden yourself, and need some counseling, some discussion, some talking, some prayer, we'd love to pray with you and talk to you. The other thing is that there are some of you here who find in yourself a controlling pattern. And I would say that that's based on your view of God. It's a strange thing to say. Connecting your controlling spirit with how you see God. You don't see God as a father. You see Him as a slave master. You don't see God as a father. You see Him as your boss who wants to control you. Now, there's a saying that goes around in Christian circles, and it's become cliche, but it has such depth of meaning, that you become what you behold. You become what you behold. So if the God that you're beholding is a controlling God, then you will want to emulate that and become controlling yourself. The idea is, if I can be controlled, then others can be controlled, and so I'll do whatever I can to control them because I'm being controlled. But God isn't like that. He hasn't created robots, and He honors the free will and autonomy that He's instilled in you. He's not interested in controlling you. He's interested in loving you. And from that place of love, you're freely able to walk in obedience. So what we're going to do is we're going to look forward. If you could put that look forward slide up for me, James. This is how we're going to close our gathering this morning. Don't forget, we have a meeting right after. Share some important updates to the life of the church. It's going to go for 10-15 minutes. But what I want you to do is talk to someone near you or a group of people near you about how you'll apply the word from today and pray with each other. Does that sound good? So turn around, talk about it, and then pray for each other afterwards. Thank you.